Thank you, gentlemen. Now we are nearly midway on day three of the Enterprise Innovation Summit 2021, and thank you to all of you who have joined in. And it's often said that innovation is doing the same thing but adding a little something to get something wholly different. Sometimes, though, you do tend to want to do something wholly different as well. Disruption. Our next talk is about the impact of disruption, and our guest has spent 5 years at NetApp and over a decade at Intuit after working with information security and risk management teams at EY and KPMG. He's also responsible for leading key security initiatives that has helped integrate security into the cultures of companies and extend the brands into global markets. Today, he's the CEO of the global chain 7-Eleven. Please welcome Sujeet Bambawale.
Thank you, Ashwin. Hello, everyone. My name is Sujeet Bambawale, and I'm honored to be presenting here at this illustrious forum of security thought leaders. It's always a pleasure to address the security community, and hopefully y'all will learn from my mistakes and perhaps for some of the things that I've done well. The last 18 months come up a lot in conversation just because of the pandemic, and some of us have had the misfortune of being affected by it, and others have had the opportunity to work from home, opportunity to work in a different setting, in a very fluid setting, and it has taught us a lot. In this presentation, I'm going to go over the disruptions in information security operations, for the most part, that have evolved based on the learnings over the last 18 months. And it will talk about artificial intelligence helping us in security operations. But more importantly, it's going to talk about adapting to our audience, learning from our internal and external customer, and for information security, speaking their language rather than speaking in our own language. All things about information security, in my opinion, should start with customers. And all things organizational should start with customers. In this context, what you see on the screen is a broad foundation of end user customers. And our end user customers is a base that we want to continue growing. A classical approach of doing this is to use, A classical approach to do this is to use growth. Inorganic growth or organic growth. Inorganic growth is through acquisitions. Organic growth is by building internal capabilities and internal skill sets. This is typically done with innovation and innovation opportunities, innovation initiatives, innovation efforts that break into different markets, that learn the customer better, that learn what the customer wants better, and thus projects us towards what we consider to higher offerings, success, and so on and so forth. In the information security context, most information security teams say, well, you've got a big customer base, you've got this big focus on growth, you've got this big focus on innovation, you've got this big staff, big enterprise in front of you, and the information security team is very small in comparison. That is true. I'm going to address that in this presentation, but let's look at all of these layers a little bit closely. Let's look at our customers. Our customer base, as I said, continues to grow, and we want it to continue growing. Customer acquisition is a very real thing. And organizations look at different methods of acquiring new customers, keeping their customers, and finding ways of engaging them in better ways so that they can upsell and cross-sell. We do this through growth opportunities. I spoke about organic and inorganic growth. What that means is we're either acquiring capabilities that would take us too long to create on our own or to mature on our own, or we are switching our focus to internal initiatives that we want to accelerate the growth of. Innovation in every aspect of the organizational machine helps with this. Are we understanding a problem very well? Are we solving it at the right scale? Is it streamlined? Are the processes aligned? Or just abandon everything and look at something out of the box, so to speak? All of this points us in the right direction upwards. But this stack of a wide customer base, this stack of a wide growth and innovation angle leads to a growth in your threat actor universe. Now, threat actors, who are they? They are folks either incentivized through compensation, through their conviction that this is something about your offerings, your brand, you, that rubs them the wrong way. There's competition as well, in which they are just competing with you and your offerings and your brand in some way. So your customer base grows, your growth grows, your innovation grows, and your threat actors are going to grow. Now, we spoke about your growth in terms of organic and inorganic. That leads to more weaponized vulnerabilities. And weaponized vulnerabilities are things that affect your systems, your infrastructure, your processes, your people. Social engineering is still a very big vulnerability. And as you grow, you have the very real threat of insider risk. Your insider risk threat vector also grows as the headcount grows. And there are people of all types within an organization. Unfortunately, some can be incentivized for the wrong reasons. So this is what the information security team has to deal with. And do threat actors grow all the time? Yes. Do weaponized vulnerabilities grow all the time? Yes. We read about this in the papers. We read about this in our favorite security blogs. Does insider risk have a similar stretchable, elastic quality? Absolutely. In fact, most conversations about insider risk are designed to be so objective that you're not really excluding anyone from the conversation. You, me, anyone could be the focus of a conversation on insider risk, because really the organization doesn't know good from bad, and it shouldn't. It should make those objective decisions. So all of this is the stress or the pressure that's building on an information security team. And the reason I place it at the very center of the hourglass is because in most cases, the information security team is something like this. Small, perceived to be under-resourced, and perceived to be, just waiting for more funding and more resources. Now, this is the perception. Now, let's look at it from the information security team's point of view. From the information security team's point of view, the first thing that they are perceived to react to are alerts. All kinds of alerts, not just from device telemetry, but from humans. And reacting to alerts within a specific timeline, within a stated timeline, and usually a very aggressive timeline, is one of the key focus areas of an information security team and an information security organization. If you don't react to an alert on time, most people will question, well, what are you doing right? Then comes the information security team's own roadmap. There are information security roadmaps that are designed towards building a defense in depth strategy. There are information security team roadmaps that are built towards acquiring the right level of capabilities, maturing what you already have, sunsetting what you don't need, procuring new ones, and so on and so forth. So there's a very tangible roadmap there. And then we have escalations. Alerts and roadmap are one thing. Escalations, which always happen, come from alerts and from your roadmap. Maybe your roadmap, something's falling off. Your team's telling you this needs to move quicker. You have some alerts coming together and you have a potential security event. So you have to deal with escalations. This and more is what is in the lens of the information security team from the inside. And from the outside, we are trying to use, and I say we because I'm kind of representing a bit of the information security community here. Obviously, one size doesn't fit all, so I can't speak to every vertical and every kind of domain in the information security field. But it is my belief and my recommendation, candidly, that intelligent technology elasticity is what we aspire to use to meet that big problem of threat actor universes stretching every day. Without intelligent technology elasticity, it is likely impossible to stay up 24/7 to meet all the attacks that are automated and at scale today, and to really be monitoring every potential threat surface of your organization and your environment at the velocity that it is being attacked. So we need intelligent technology that is elastic so that we move at the velocity of innovation. Support staffing. Core and context is a principle that we've heard about in the past. Core is what high value work is restricted for. Core is what your human capital is focused on. Core is what you want to magnify through technology elasticity. We will never have an information security team that is wide enough to look at the security problem at a one-to-one scale. So it is a mix of intelligent elastic technology and the right support staffing that will magnify our core human capital such that we can even aspire to meet the scale of the information security problem that we face today. So it's support staffing and technology elasticity that is tier 3 and tier 2 coming in. These again have their set of escalations. So you can have the most intelligent tech, you can have the most elastic scalable tech, and you can have good support staffing that is working off of playbooks that you have created, that you are adapting, that you are vetting and pressure testing all the time, but you will still have escalations. And then you will have other things like things going on in your partner universe. And we hear a lot about digital supply chain and related aspects of this. So it's not just these things. It's not just this very nice, funnel that says, okay, well, everything's going to come in through the SOC and everything's going to be in one funnel and everything's going to fall nicely into these workflows and be correlated. When you're working on that and when you're working on an escalation about that, it's very likely that at 3:30 p.m. on a Friday, you're going to hear about something that went on in your partner ecosystem, in your digital supply chain. You're going to hear about an attack that's potentially using offensive artificial intelligence. So there's always something else. And this is where the information security team perceives itself to be. So on the prior slide, we saw the external perception of information security. And this is a look at what the internal reality of information security is, in which we want to use elastic intelligent technology. We want to use the right level of support staffing. We will have escalations nonetheless, and it will not fall into this nice set of curated workflows. That's just from the outside. From the inside, we still have alerts. We still have our commitments to fix vulnerabilities within our stated timelines. We still have commitments to meet internal events within our stated timelines and all the other alerts that come to InfoSec for disposition. We have our own roadmap because we want to evolve the information security posture of the organization in a manner, at a vector, and at a velocity that we think is right for that company. and we will have our own escalations amongst other things. So this is really, where the information security team's internal perception is. And now, from what the information security team looks at and what the information security has to deal with, a very common thing that comes in conversations about security operations is threat intelligence. I hear a lot about, in the security operations context, I hear a lot about, well, if you have the right threat intelligence, a lot can be accomplished or a lot can be fixed. Now let's talk about threat intelligence. Threat intelligence, I agree, and there are a lot of good feeds and there are a lot of good sources out there today. They certainly help. There is, though, a recurring theme of removing duplicates, removing redundancy, and removing other things relating to this. So with regards to threat intelligence, what we have to focus on is, are we getting the right information at the right pace? And is it credible? Credibility is a big deal in the threat intelligence community, and a lot of feeds are sourced for their credibility. So is it credible? Is it at a high velocity? Are you learning about it fast enough? And is it deduplicated? Are you going to hear about it from multiple sources? Finally, is it contextually relevant? Visibility. A lot of information security operations focus, and really information security in general requires the right level of visibility. And that is supposed to be one of the key pivot points or the key gears that needs to change. A lot of information security teams would say, I still don't have 100% visibility. Threat intelligence and visibility put together, yes, they make a huge impact on how the deliverable is presented from an information security operations perspective to the InfoSec organization and to the company as a whole. But the biggest gear here is correlation. So without correlation, without being able to say, okay, well, these things with this threat intelligence come together to form this theory, this hypothesis, that is key for good information security operations and good execution of information security operations. Now, that being said, this is often the hardest part. And it is the hardest part because where we end here is, without the right correlation, we are just going to be spending a lot of time chasing a lot of different speculations, different hypotheses, and different theories. So a key disruption that I have seen today to the very topic of this session is correlation is getting better. Correlation is getting better because correlation platforms are bringing the value of their entire platform to you. What I've seen with a lot of large scale wide platforms is that they're learning from all of their customers. And we'll talk more about learning and adaptation in this session as well. But what I feel has changed a lot, not just because of the pandemic, but just because of maturity in the security space, is that correlation platforms are saying, well, you are in this vertical, and in this vertical, we are seeing this with different places. So we are going to automatically flag that for you. And this has helped information security, especially operations teams, a lot. I get asked about what is one of the key deliverables from the information security operations team to the company. And the first thing I always say is, you may have great correlation, but adapt to your audience. If you tell someone, IP address X and Y and Z is talking to 4 other IP addresses, and therefore it's a problem. Yes, it is a problem, but it's a problem that only you can understand. Adapt to your audience. If you change that narrative into an X senior person's computer is connected to 4 malware destinations. And therefore, it's a problem because these are live persistent links right now. You've changed the risk context to your audience, to something that somebody can understand. And that's very important because it is about human engagement, not just telemetry. Information security teams typically tend to speak a lot of technology speak. And what I always recommend is that try to speak plain English, try to speak the language of your land. So information security teams with the best correlation, with the best threat intelligence, with the best visibility should always focus on human engagement and adapting to your audience. Then comes a very important aspect of being the front desk for information security. What that specifically means is the Information Security Operations Center, and this is not innovation or disruption by any means. This is just basics, which is why it's kind of front and center for me. People walking into the emergency room don't always know what has happened to them. They don't always know what they need to fix whatever it is that has happened to them. So the Information Security Operations Center, as basic foundational operation, as a mindset, should be the front desk for information security. Someone's come to the desk of the ER saying, hey, something's wrong, something's hurting, something's broken. And we should do that initial pressure testing to say, well, what could this be? Let me do some vitals checking. And once I have that security context established, then I can route you. In many cases, perhaps, well, it's unfair to say many cases. In some cases, perhaps there is no security context. Perhaps, you heard something on the news and you saw that your computer was acting weird, and in your mind, you put that together into potential malware, and you came to the SOC and said, hey, I think my computer's infected. Don't stop doing that, but then understand that as the front desk of InfoSec, we are going to do some vitals testing. We're going to do some pressure testing to say, do we see anything from your computer? And if not, okay, if once we have stripped the security context, we're going to say, well, this is fine. But if you have actually identified security context, then we're going to send you to malware analysis, or we're going to say, well, we're going to need to retain this computer for imaging or for treatment or for so on and so forth. So that's really what I advise information security operations teams to think about in terms of adapt to your audience, think about human engagement, not just telemetry. Don't just tell them, I see 4 IPs beaconing and X and Y and Z, things that they may not be able to necessarily understand. Be the front desk for information security, pressure test for security context. And once all that has changed, look at a unified review and risk mitigation. So if you tell someone, well, you've got to go here and you've got to do X and you've got to do Y, and after you're done, come back here and then I'll tell you what to do next. It's not a great experience. So again, learning from the decentralized fluid environment that we've been in over the last 18 months, people tend to like one-stop shops, a single point of connection, a single point of contact for the unified risk review. To say they like to trust like one person, one face, one process to say, am I done? Am I out of a security concern? Do I have to do anything else? And Information Security Operations Center should react to that, should work with that and say, yes, these are the following next steps. And when they're all done, you're done, you're good to go. So look at risk mitigation and a unified review as one of the core tenets of the entire operation. Now, there are very few information security presentations specifically about operations that can conclude without talking about the OODA loop. And the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. I'm not going to read out the screen. You've seen this many times before. This is still very relevant, but in the context of automation, in the context of innovation, and in the context of disruption, it now has to evolve. It has to evolve because we're talking about scaling out our security teams with intelligent elastic technology. And that intelligent elastic technology has to learn from you. It has to learn from your experiences. It has to learn from your context. It has to learn your organization, your teams, the way you act. So it can't be that you just deployed intelligent tech and you're sitting back. You actually have to reframe your OODA loop to do a lot of new things. And they're not brand new. I think once you see all the blocks, you'll be able to relate to them. The first one obviously is observe. And the second one is always orient and decide and act. This is the typical OODA loop. But after we act, we have to learn. We have to learn, was this the same as something before? Was this different? What was the variance? Can we replicate this into a playbook, either for our support staffing that I talked about before, or for going straight into an automated playbook that can be consumed by our elastic technology front end? And I really call it the intelligent elastic technology front end because that's what it is to me. Then we move to adaptation. Once we replicate and we remove any kind of duplicates and anything that we have in the system, we say, okay, is this for the current year and beyond? And very important for all things automation, have we simplified it as best as we could? Automation will start failing if you make things overtly complex. It becomes harder to test. It becomes harder to validate. So after you've done all these steps of learning, replicating, adapting, it's very important to simplify. Once you simplify something and it can be put into a playbook, it becomes easier, and we'll see this on the next slide, for rotational development as well. It becomes easier to welcome new faces, diverse backgrounds into the information security organization because you've made the process of information security operations simpler. Now, today's security funnel, and that's just a representation of a funnel, has a lot of talk of AI, artificial intelligence. And that to me is a buzzword for intelligent technology, which is elastic. A lot of talk about threat intel. Again, threat intel is another buzzword. Those two put together, they are not the magic bullet, but they do form a large part of the equation because they offer speed and speed to results. But my recommendation is put these three together to perform your correlations in what I like to call plain English. It has to be all plain English consumable, because the more you bog down your own analysts with technical terms and so on and so forth, the more they will probably echo and resonate that to others. From this, it's important to talk about workflow, scale, and variance. Plain English drives a good workflow, which then scales out and adapts to variance better, which then gives us actionable intelligence to move forward very quickly, a rapid response, which is what we want. And I just spoke about rotational development as well. So with all of this put together, this is what we started with. We started with this being where the information security team, especially in the context of operations, lies. And with plain English correlation, with deduped threat intelligence, with focusing on your audience, adapting your audience, being a front desk to the information security team, thinking about things at scale, we can look at data-driven insights from your process, driving data-driven decisions or insights-driven decisions, which then drive auditable decisions tuned to your audience. I think, and this is the most important, because it's, all of your actions, all of our actions from an information security team should be auditable, and we should be able to say how we got there. I realize this was more technical than some of you may have thought about, but I hope this was helpful. Thank you very much for your time. These are some ways to reach me, and I do look forward to your questions. And thank you, Ashwin, and thank you to this wonderful conference for having me here. Thanks a lot.